So welcome, thank you for being here. For those I haven't met before, my name is Jodi, and this is Gentle Yoga. For today, as always, to get started, we'll begin with centering. So I'll invite you to find a comfortable seat, and I'll go through a couple of options today. I have a blanket folded to elevate my sit bones, and I'm in Sukhasana here. Yet there's options, right? So if you prefer, if it feels good for you to be on your knees, you can settle into Varasana, hero's pose. If you have very tight hamstrings and it's difficult to sit cross-legged, what I'd actually suggest is blocks or something block-like directly underneath your sit bones, just so that you can get some of that pressure off of the hips and really allow the knees to be below hip level. So just with those options in mind, find a way to take a comfortable seat. And we'll settle in here with our first mudra, a hand posture. This is the mudra of the inner self. So I'll invite you to just rub your hands together. Feel the heat generated there. And then place each fingertip against the other and create a little bit of space between the palms so the knuckles are moving out to either side while the wrists and fingertips are touching. This is the mudra of the inner self. And as we take this shape with our hands and settle into our practice for the day, just invite you to scan slowly through your inner world, noticing the quality of your mental space, bringing your awareness to that point between your eyebrows and just getting curious. What is my mental landscape like today? Just bringing into awareness anything that's pulling at your attention, and without getting too caught up in it, just labeling it, noticing it. Okay. Might be a lot of agitation in the mind. Might be calm, clear, and open, like the spring sky in Montreal right now. Whatever it is, just accepting that. That's what we're working with. That's where we're starting from. And then dropping your awareness into felt sensations and scanning from the crown of the head through to the tips of your toes. Just noticing, are there areas of tenderness, tightness, holding? Are there areas you need to be protective of in your practice today? Are there areas that feel open and fluid, easeful? Just noticing both and allowing it to be here. This is a practice of reconnecting to the body and really working to do so from a place of curiosity rather than judgment. So now, holding the whole body in awareness, I'll invite you to let your mind and your attention settle on your emotions. So dropping into the heart center without getting too wrapped up in a story, just noticing, what am I feeling as I start the practice today? How is that emotional space? Is it heavy or lighter? Pleasant, unpleasant, a combination of the two. Just letting it be as it is. And now from this place of awareness of the mind, the body, the heart space, taking a moment to set an intention for your practice today. What is it you need? What is it that brought you here? As you articulate that to yourself, beginning to draw the breath deeply into the navel And lengthening the exhale, allowing us to settle in, to soften into this moment. From there, we'll begin to move. So I will invite you now just to take a moment to really stabilize the pelvic bowl. So again, we're thinking we don't want to be tipping the pelvic bowl too far forward or tipping it too far back, but have it in a nice neutral position, maybe with a slight anterior tilt. That's stable. And from there, we're going to work with opening the shoulders with lateral movements. So if it's difficult to reach the arm up overhead, again, I'll just invite you to reach out to either side. I will start by lowering the left hand down, reaching the right arm up and over, and breathing for one moment here. But then we'll switch from side to side fairly fluidly. So here, taking a breath, and then coming back up through center and lowering the right hand, taking a breath here, opening through the side body, this lateral stretch, and we'll alternate a few times, moving from side to side. And here we're in the warming phase, so we're just getting curious. How is the spine feeling today? Is there a lot of tightness in the side body? What do I feel when I open in this way? Let's take one more on either side. Taking a full breath into the lateral opening on one side and then the other. Then coming back up through center. And here, now that we've opened from side to side, we're going to open, folding forward and then back. Okay, so I'll invite you to lift your arms straight up and then slowly fold the body forward, finding the ground with your fingertips if that's available, and allowing the navel to draw in towards the spine, the chin to the chest, rolling forward here, and sending a deep breath into the back ribs, letting the lungs fill, exploring this spinal fold and just seeing what does this bring up in the back body through the spine, this forward bend, breathing with it. And then slowly rolling up, and here opening into a gentle back bend. So our shoulders draw back, our chin lifts to open in the throat and across the chest, and we can place both hands on the back of the sacrum and just lift that sternum, your chest up towards the ceiling. The chin follows, but we're careful not to create compression in the back of the neck. So we're not lifting the chin dramatically, just a slight lift is enough. And breathing into that opening across the chest, getting curious about how this feels on the front of the shoulders. If it's quite intense in the front of the shoulders, it's a good indication that maybe your shoulders have been rolling forward, like many of us, over the computer too often. Just breathing with that, then exhaling, releasing. And again, we can lift the arms straight up or just out in front and then roll forward again. Now finding a little more fluidity in this movement. So not holding quite as long, but allowing the chin to tuck, the spine to round, and then slowly coming back up, finding that gentle opening through the chest. The chin lifts, gentle back bend. We'll repeat that one more time. So flowing forward, rolling the back, forward fold. And then slowly coming up, placing the hands behind the sacrum, dropping the shoulders, opening the chest and lifting the chin. Taking a final breath here, and then releasing. So from here, we're going to take a moment just to do a gentle stretch for the neck. So I'll invite you to find that stacking, that stable pelvic bowl. And here we're going to lower the shoulders, tuck the chin in, and let the left ear drop towards the left shoulder. And just breathing into the side of the neck here. And if it feels good for you, you can absolutely just lift one arm and place your hand lightly over the right ear. Not adding pressure, but just a gentle holding. And then you can add a slide in the ribs by placing your hand on the left rib and just slowly encouraging the ribs over to the right. Now we can feel a lateral stretch all the way up through the side body and into the neck. Breathing with that. Then slowly unfurling, the hand unfurls. We come back up through center. And we prepare to repeat on the other side. So dropping the shoulders, lowering the right ear to the right shoulder. Breathing into that opening in the side of the neck. And from here, do we want more? If so, we take that right hand, gently rest it on the left ear. The left hand can come, slide the ribs over to the left. Deepening into a side stretch. And breathing into the opening throughout the side ribs, throughout the side of the neck. And just noticing with curiosity and kindness, where am I tight? Where are things tense? Where am I holding? Can you invite breath into that area? Invite movement. Invite the energy to flow. And slowly unfurling, right arm comes down, head comes back to center, and the other hand releases. Here we'll just take a moment to roll the wrists, preparing for weight bearing on the wrists. And come to rest on our back. So I'm moving blocks aside and the blanket aside by keeping it within reach for later in our practice. And now just coming to rest on the back, planting my feet on the mat and then slowly rolling the back down. Really letting the head rest on the mat, letting my shoulder blades go flush with the mat. And we'll take a moment here to hug one knee in and extend the other leg right out. And we'll squeeze this right knee into the chest and then extend it up towards the ceiling. Nice stretch for the hamstring. Here, taking the hands, interlacing the fingers behind the right thigh if that feels good. And we'll take a few moments here just to bend the knee towards the chest and then extend that ankle towards the ceiling. So you can synchronize your movement with your breath here if you would like to. We're just opening through the knee, lubricating that joint, but also giving ourselves a hamstring stretch. This is really great if you have tight hamstrings. And it's simultaneously a gentle inversion, getting blood flowing. This is one of the really great movements for digestion as well. And today we'll be working with this theme of digestion, of stimulating digestion in both an emotional and a physical sense. So we'll release that right leg, send it up and then down to rest first with the knee bent on the ground. And then bring the left knee, bend it beside the right, and then lower the right knee down, extending the right leg and drawing that left knee towards the chest, squeezing, feeling the opening in the hip, the stretch in the knee joint. And from here, we'll lengthen the leg, heel towards the ceiling, interlace our hands behind the left side. Breathe into that hamstring stretch. And then exhale, draw the knee in. And repeat this gentle, almost pumping motion. Lengthening the leg and then bending the knee. Waking up the leg muscles, lubricating the joints. Great, and then extending both feet straight up towards the ceiling. We'll just take a moment to lift the hands straight up towards the ceiling, to join them so the legs are up, the arms are up, and we'll take a moment just to point and flex our hands and ankles. Inviting movement into the ankle and wrist joint. Whenever we're doing weight bearing on either, we want to be sure to send some love into these areas. And now rotating in circular motions, both the hands and the feet. Feeling the back flush with the mat and the work in the abdomen that it takes to keep our limbs up in this way. Remembering to breathe, seeing if we can relax in the jaw, in the throat. And then releasing. Back into an active rest pose with our feet on the mat. But from here, we're going to extend the left leg again, and we're going to take that right leg into a 90-degree angle. So our knee is up, and with our left hand, we're going to gently draw the knee across the body, paying a lot of attention to the right hip here. We're just drawing that right knee over towards the left side of the ground, or the ground on the left side of us, I should say, and then opening back up. And following our natural range of motion here, I'm just getting curious, how are things feeling in my hips today? How is that opening? How is that inward rotation that creates that stretch from the outer hip? So when we open and drop this knee to the right, we're feeling into our inner hip. And when we draw our knee over to the left, we're feeling into the outer hip. So just noticing that, giving the muscles and ligaments that support this joint a little breathing room, a really gentle stretch and warming here. And coming back to center, planting that right foot on the ground, bringing the left foot up to join it, and then letting the right leg extend. And with our right hand now, gently drawing the knee over to the right, and then opening to the left. So repeating the movement on the other side with respect for our natural range of motion, without forcing anything, just inviting some movement, some warming. You can move this as slowly or as quickly as you'd like, as long as you're doing so mindfully. We know that if we're moving quickly, we're more focused on activation and building energy. When we slow down, we're calming, we're soothing. So you can play within the movements we do, activating or slowing, depending on what your needs are. And planting both feet on the ground, we'll prepare to roll over onto a fetal position. So Just take a moment on your back and then roll over, gently pushing yourself up with that left hand and coming to find a tabletop position. So moving into a little bit more of an active phase here. Make sure our hands are underneath our shoulders. And we'll be moving in transitions from cat and cow to downward dog and child pose. So we'll start with our cow, dropping the navel towards the mat and lifting the chin, lifting the tailbone towards the ceiling. But again, being conscious of not creating compression in the back of the neck. And then rolling forward, lifting the navel towards the spine, rounding the back of the spine towards the ceiling. And we'll move through 2 more of these rotations between cat and cow. So when we lift our head, our crown of our head and our tailbone towards the ceiling, we're in cat. We can feel that pelvic bowl dipping forward. And when we round and lift our belly button towards the ceiling, we're feeling our tailbone tuck, the pelvic bowl tip back. So just noticing that in the movement for a moment. And then prepare from here to press into downward facing dog. So planting your hands, thinking of all of the hand pressing into the mat, slight external rotation in your shoulders and pressing back up. Our first downward dog of the day. We'll pedal our heels here, lowering one and then the other towards the mat. Our gaze is towards our belly button here, and we're thinking as we move in downward dog of drawing our navel in towards the spine, this slight activation in the core, and lifting the sit bones up towards the ceiling as the head drops towards the mat. We'll breathe for a moment here, lowering the ankles as close to the ground as it feels accessible with your hamstrings. If there's a great deal of tightness through the back of the legs, you can bend your knees as generously as you need to. Take one more breath here. And then slowly, with control, we're going to settle the knees onto the mat and lower ourselves towards our heels. And so here we're going to settle into a child's pose, lowering our head as close to the floor as feels available, maybe stacking our arms on top of one another so the head can rest on them, or stacking the fists, and just taking a moment to give the wrists some relief from that weight bearing, to settle the breath. And from here, we'll repeat again. So coming back into tabletop, moving into a cat shape, the belly dropping towards the mat, and then that round cat, the navel lifting towards the ceiling. We'll do that twice more. Feeling this spinal fluidity and the core muscles engaging as we move the spine through this flexion and extension. And then grounding the hands into the mat, tucking the toes under. We're moving back into downward facing dog. And again, finding what feels good for you, maybe pedaling the heels down towards the mat. Maybe bending both knees at the same time and then extending, experimenting with that. And then slowly with control, lowering the knees down again And then the elbows come down to the mat, and again we settle the tailbone towards the ankles. Maybe taking a moment here just to roll the wrists, releasing tension. And then settling into this child's pose and seeing if you can experiment with drawing your breath into the back body, drawing your breath into the back ribs, the back of the lungs, feeling your diaphragm, that muscle beneath the lungs, expand, draw the breath in low, and with your exhale, exhaling fully. So from here, one last round coming up to tabletop, going through just one cat and one cow, and then curling the toes under, pressing into downward dog. But from here, instead of coming back into child's pose, we're just going to slowly walk our hands back towards our feet, bend our knees, and settle into a forward fold. Letting the head and shoulders, arms be heavy, release towards the ground. And you can keep the knees bent here or experiment with extending both legs. And you can gently cradle the back of your head with your hands to encourage a stretch through the cervical spine. We'll take one more full breath here. And then slowly, one vertebrae at a time, rolling up towards a standing position. And then coming to the center of our mat and taking a moment just to swing the arms from side to side. Let's shaking that out. Letting that go. Okay, so from here, we're going to be engaging in a fluid movement, and I'll invite you to watch this first. My feet are about the distance of my wrists. So if I extend my arms out to either side and look down, my ankles are lining up with my wrists here. So I can see that. And what I'm going to do is bend one knee at a time. So when I bend my left knee, I'm bringing my right arm over to the side of the bent knee, and I'm going to create a bit of a sweeping motion. So I'm just sweeping to the other side and bringing the opposite arm out and over with the opposite knee bent. Okay, so I'm going to be moving from side to side in this way. The hand that goes behind the back can come to rest against the sacrum. And I'll invite you to repeat this a few times. Measuring that hand flowing across in a smooth sweeping motion. We're warming the knees here, creating movement through the upper body. And if it feels accessible, you can gaze over the shoulder you're flowing towards. And you can speed this up or go as slowly as you'd like, but just feeling this sweeping motion with the arms, bending one knee and then the other, maybe synchronizing it with your breath. And if it feels good, you can add a visualization, maybe sweeping work off your desk, sweeping the stagnant winter energy out of your system. Whatever it is you need, do 3 more repetitions. Then as you're ready, come back to standing. Take a moment to roll the ankles, roll the wrists, and then again come into that wide parallel position where we have our ankles lined up under our wrists. And from here, we're going to forward fold, hinging at the hips. So we'll slowly fold so that our upper body is parallel with the ground. And from here, I'll invite you, if it feels accessible, to bend your left knee and then come back up to center, and then bend your right knee and come back up to center. And so you want to keep your foot in line with the knee. So when the knee bends, the foot is pointing in the same direction. And then we slowly will lengthen both legs and come back up. That was just a warm up, so if that feels like enough, then that's where you stop for today. You can continue to do that movement, but if you'd like more, I'm going to add to it. So we'll do the same. We're lowering the body parallel with the ground, and now bending just the left knee, just a slight bend and holding. And if it feels like you want more here, you place the left hand behind the back on the sacrum and lower your right hand towards the ground, reaching for the left foot. So feeling the stretch in the upper right thigh here. And if this feels very accessible and you're open to more still, you can take your left arm and extend it upwards, engaging a twist into the rib cage, the thoracic spine, mid-back. And breathing with this. One more full breath. And then slowly coming back through center, straightening both legs and hinging at the hips to come up. Now we'll repeat on the other side. So slowly with control, lowering the upper body to be parallel with the mat, taking a moment here, noticing what you need. And if you're into more movement, then we bend that right knee slightly, turn the foot out to be in line with the knee, extend our left hand towards the right foot while keeping the upper body parallel with the mat in a general way, and then lifting, if that feels accessible, the right arm up. And the gaze follows that right arm if it's moving up, and we're twisting through the ribs, deepening the stretch in the inner left thigh, breathing with this. One more full breath, in whichever variation you find yourself. And then slowly releasing both arms into the center, straightening out both knees and allowing the body to fold forward. Taking one full cycle of breath here, releasing the head towards the ground. And then slowly rising up with a flat back halfway. And then all the way up and doing heel toe to bring the feet together. And again, just taking a moment to roll the ankles. Let that movement go. And now we're going to settle into goddess pose. So the feet are going back out to about the same distance apart. And we're pointing our toes, angling out towards the corner, either opposite corner of the room. And here preparing to settle into a squat, but just taking stock for a moment of the pelvic bowl, keeping it steady, and slowly bending the knees to flow towards where the feet are pointing as we lower the pelvic bowl down, as low as feels comfortable. And then we'll slowly rise up again. And this time we'll lower down and we'll hold. So here, if it feels good for you, you can invite the arms up in front and then open and add that lift of the chin, that opening across the chest, inviting circulation through the chest, dropping the shoulders away from the ears. One more breath here. And then slowly releasing, extending the legs. Heel toe, back to center, letting that go. So we're going to stretch the quadriceps now, as you can feel how the thigh muscles really engage there, but while working with a balanced pose. So for this one, again, we'll do it in phases, and you choose where you want to stop. Being considerate, being kind to your body, grounding through the left foot first. We'll just lift our right heel into our right hand and just start here. So already there's a good deal of stretch through the front of the right shoulder, through the quadricep. We can just enjoy that. But if you'd like more, you can lift the arm up and back, clasp the inner foot, and slowly keeping a nice straight plane and line of movement, we can press the foot into the hand and lift it directly back behind us and lift the left arm up, just deepening the stretch, breathing in whatever variation you find yourself, just for 2 more breaths. And then slowly releasing out of it and repeating on the other side. So taking a moment to turn the ankle, grounding through the right foot now, taking that right foot in the right hand, finding our center here, finding that engagement in the core. So we can feel this stretch already. And only if you'd like more, then we wind the arm up and back, clasp the inner arch of the foot, and extend the left thigh back and the right arm up, creating resistance with the hand against the foot. We'll take 2 more breaths wherever we find ourselves. Remembering to find your drishti, your focus for your eyes, a focal point on the wall or somewhere nearby. And slowly, with control, lowering back down. All right, and so now preparing to move towards the floor, I'm going to take a blanket and place it in the middle of my mat, just because I know that I like that added support under my knees. So this is entirely optional, but I'll do that having it there already. And so now I'm going to come into mountain pose, just planting my feet and taking stock, just finding that nice positioning where my heart, my ribs are directly over my hips, where I'm tucking my chin slightly, my head and neck are over my ribcage, opening across the chest, the shoulders. And from here, I'm going to slowly lower my sit bones as if into a chair. And I'm just raising my hands up to shoulder level and extending my arms right out in front. And just seeing how far I can lower my sit bones, bringing my weight more into my heels here. And now I'm going to slowly round my back and bring my hands as close to the floor as I'm able. So on an exhale, preferably just lowering the hands down towards the floor, keeping that engagement in the thighs, and then bringing them back up. We'll just do that one more time, lowering the hands, and then bringing them back up, and then holding. For one more breath. And then coming back to standing, releasing through the legs, bending one knee at a time. And now I'm going to step my right leg back into a runner's lunge. So finding that stability through my foundation. Here I'm going to take my arms and put one hand atop the other behind the sacrum and feel that opening across the chest, that slight lift in the chin. Breathing here for a moment, and then slowly with control, lowering my knee down to the blanket, down to the mat, and finding this crescent lunge shape here. I'm going to place my hands over the left thigh and just hold it steady for one moment, feeling that stretch through the right hip, the right front body. And then slowly with control, I'm going to lengthen my left leg and bring it back into a hamstring stretch. So my hips as close to level as possible, and I'm going to curl my body over the extended leg here. Breathing into that stretch through the hamstring on my left leg. And then rising out, bending the knee, coming out of it, and then easing back in. We'll do that one more time. Gently coming out, and then flowing back into it. And then releasing again. And from here, I'm going to slowly, with control, place both knees on the mat. Turn to face forward. And then I'm going to extend my left leg out for gate pose. So my left leg is going straight out to the side. My feet are pointing forward. And here I can already feel a good deal of stretch in that inner thigh. And from here, I'm going to make a choice. If I want more stretch along the neck and the front shoulder, I'll place my right hand behind my sacrum as I slowly let the left arm slide down. But if I'd like more stretch in the side body, then I raise my arm overhead. So find what works for you here. We'll breathe with it for 3 breaths. And slowly rise back up through center. Bring the knees together, and we're going to face towards the short end of the mat again. And this time we're going to bring that right knee to bend. So we're repeating the psoas stretch, that crescent lunge on the opposite side. Taking a moment just to breathe into it, lowering the shoulders away from the ears, seeing if we can relax in the jaw, soften around the eyes, and prepare to bring it back into that hamstring stretch, keeping our hips level, moving slowly with control, with respect for the hips, and folding over that extended right leg. And then flowing forward out of the stretch, and then coming back in. We'll do that one more time. Bending the knee and then coming back into that hamstring stretch. Folding the body over it, breathing into the back body. And then releasing. And again, we're coming into gate pose. So my left knee is on the blanket. I'm going to extend my right leg out this time. And already here, there's a good deal of sensation in the right hip. So maybe this is where I stop. Or I'm going to place my left hand over the sacrum and slowly Lower in to that side body stretch, feeling that opening through the inner right hip. And from here we have those alternate arm motions, but if you did one on the other side, I encourage you to repeat the same, just to balance out. And we'll take 2 more breaths here. And as you're ready, slowly, with control, coming back up through center, releasing and finding your way to the ground. So sit bones down. Here we can move the blanket off to the side. And we'll take a moment here just to release the legs. So you can bounce one knee and then the other softly on the mat. And to balance out the forward fold as we lengthen the legs and press both into the ground, I'll invite you to walk your hands behind the hips, fingertips pointing towards the hips. And again, gentle lift in the chin, shoulders draw back, opening across the chest. If it's helpful here, you can add an image of spring sunshine shining on your face, warming the shoulders, helping the face muscles relax. Breathe into this opening across the chest, and then slowly release. So we'll prepare for a twist here, a seated twist. So my feet are hip distance apart, extended in front of me. I'm going to bend my right knee. Take a deep breath, extending my left arm out, and then with ease, slowly turn towards the right, wrapping my left arm around my right knee. And here we find the support we need with our right hand. Does it feel good to have it just gently support behind the body? Does it feel good to have it rest against the sacrum? Keeping integrity and dignity in the spine, so your spine is elongated here. So seeing if we can root our tail down and lift up through the crown of the head. So we have that nice long seated spine. And from here, only if it feels good, we can gaze over the right shoulder, deepening the twist, breathing with it. And then slowly, with control, back to center. Again, taking a moment just to shake that out. And you might want to take a moment to move your glutes off to either side and really feel that stacking, right? So we're looking for that dignity in the spine. And when we twist, it's up in the thoracic spine, the upper mid-spine for the most part. So we bend our left knee, extend the right arm out, and slowly from this upright seated position, then we wrap that right arm around the knee and ease into the twist. Gaze over the left shoulder, only if that doesn't create discomfort in the cervical spine. If it does, then we just gaze to the side. Breathing into it here. Keeping that dignified length in the spine. Then slowly turning the chest back to face the feet. And again, just letting that effort go. Beautiful. So now we're going to come again to our backs. Slowly, with control, lowering down one vertebrae at a time. And we'll take a moment here to really settle the shoulder blades against the mat and do some pelvic bowl tilts. So tilting the pelvic bowl so that we round that tailbone, tuck it underneath, the pelvic bowl tips back, and then switching directions, drawing our navel towards our thighs, and just go back and forth for about 3 repetitions. And then settling in neutral, we'll brace our elbows against the mat and prepare to come up into a supported shoulder stand here, a supported bridge. So we're lifting the hips up slowly and holding. Our thighs are engaged here, parallel to one another. Knees pointing directly over the feet. We'll just take a moment here to breathe, letting again the eyes be soft, the jaw and the throat relax. They're not working here. And let the breath be deep, drawn down, low, so we can feel that belly rise with the breath. Long, slow exhale. And then slowly releasing. And now we're preparing for Shavasana. So if there's one last stretch you'd like, I encourage you to listen to yourself to do that now. If you're open to a Baddha Konasana, opening the hips and opening the knees out to either side, stay with me. But if not, maybe you just want some gentle stretches, maybe you want thread the needle, whatever it might be, go ahead, you do you. I'm going to gently let my knees fall to either side and place my feet one against the other. And I'm going to take both hands and let them cradle the back of the head and let my elbows point to either side of the room. If this isn't accessible, you can gently place the hands on the belly. And here I'm just letting the opening in the hips be supported by my breath, feeling the ground beneath the skull, feeling the feet pressing against one another, and allowing the belly to be soft, allowing the breath to be drawn deep in as the diaphragm extends, opening, the lungs fill, opening to the front, back, and either side. Take 2 more breaths here. And then slowly, with control, easing the knees up towards one another, widening the feet out to either side of the mat, and then just letting the knees windshield wipe from one side to the other. Gentle stretch for the hips here. You can turn your head at the same time to give a last little stretch for the cervical spine. And then coming back into center, we'll prepare to relax into Shavasana. So if you have a warm, cozy blanket or socks you'd like to put on, I encourage you to do that now, just as our body temperature drops quite dramatically when we rest in full Shavasana, corpse pose. So we're letting our hands and arms settle to either side of the body, palms facing up towards the ceiling, the inner arch of the feet facing up towards the ceiling as our feet fall open to either side. And taking a moment just to allow the body to settle, feeling the support of the ground along the length of the back body, from the head all the way to the heels. I'll invite you to take a moment here as we reach the closing of our practice to come back to that intention you set at the beginning of the class. Just noticing with kindness and curiosity what helped, what hindered. And then taking that same sweeping awareness from the head to the tips of the toes, just checking in, how is my body doing now? Can I release? Can I soften? Can I let go into the support of the ground beneath me? Sending nourishing breath to any areas that still feel tight. To encourage the body to relax here, I'm going to lead a guided progressive muscle relaxation, but if you'd like to drop beneath the sound of my voice to find your own rest and silence, please do. For anyone who would like to join me, I'm going to start with the muscles of the face. With each area, I will be contracting the muscles gently, not going overboard, but then fully releasing, noticing the difference between tension and release. So beginning with the muscles of the face, scrunching, furrowing your brow, scrunching your mouth, your nose, holding, and then releasing, allowing it to soften. And then the jaw, gently clenching the jaw, feeling the jaw muscles engage, and then allow them to soften. Allow the tongue to be soft, resting against the floor of the mouth. Then moving into the shoulders, tightening through the shoulders, lifting them slightly off of the mat, and then releasing. And then the length of the arms and the hands form in fists. They reach up off the mat, tight, and then release fully. Shoulders, wrists, elbows heavy, releasing into the mat. Then contracting in the ribs, upper abdomen, diaphragm, flexing into the upper abdomen, tightening, and then releasing, feeling the back of the ribs settle against the mat, softening, heavy. And then tightening through the lower abdomen, sex organs, anus, lower abdomen, tightening, squeezing, and then releasing, softening, letting go. And then through the hips, squeezing the glutes, tightening in the hips, feeling that contraction, and then softening, releasing fully, letting the tailbone settle, letting the hip bones be heavy, softening into the support of the ground beneath them, almost as if melting. Then through both thighs, flexing the thighs, feeling that contraction, that tightening, and then releasing. And then through the knees and the calves, tightening, feeling the contraction. What does tension here feel like? And then releasing, letting it go, seeing if you can soften completely, surrender into the support of the ground beneath you. And the feet, curling the toes, tightening the feet, lifting the heels off the mat, feeling that clench, and then softening, releasing. Ankles are heavy, melting into the support of the ground. Holding the whole body in awareness here for a moment and giving the whole body permission to rest, to soften, to release into the support beneath it. The skull, shoulders, wrists, hip bones, ankles, release. Take one full minute in silence here. In our final moments of Shavasana, I'll invite you just to take a few last deep breaths. While you do so, maybe if you're ready to come out of Shavasana, beginning to invite movement into the body. If you'd like to stay here for longer, please do. This stillness is nourishing, this non-doing, resting in awareness is healing. For those who would like to close the class with 3 repetitions of the mantra Om, I'll invite you to slowly invite movement into the body and come up to a seated position. It can be helpful to gently press yourself up with the support of the exhale. And I'll be taking the mudra of the inner self again. So wrists, fingertips together, knuckles pointing out to either side, this little inner dome. Breathing in deeply. Om. That's gentle yoga for today. Thank you for your practice, everyone. So nice to have you with me.